All right. Hi, everybody. And hello, Stani. So let's start out with, who are you? Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Stani Kulechov. I'm the founder of Aave, and we're a team that has built the Aave protocol previously that is more focused on decentralized finance. And more recently, we started to build, a couple of years ago, Lens Protocol. And Lens is a set of smart contracts that are primitives for social networking, effectively what we like to call on-chain social network. What else do you want to know?
So Aave was one of the forerunners of DeFi, so you helped set off the explosion of DeFi apps. Today we're talking about Lens for part of the industry that hasn't had that yet. They haven't had their DeFi summer yet. So tell us more about Lens, how it's positioned to do that, and what that means for on-chain social.
Yeah, so some of you probably know about Lens. Who has a Lens profile, by the way? Oh, quite nice. So yeah, so I'm going to keep it relatively short, but what I like to say about Lens is that effectively it's a tool for developers to build social experiences and also build certain guarantees for the users. So the reason we're using blockchain guide frequently is that we have these smart contracts that gives us guarantees. So that might be ownership, that might be some particular art NFT that you have ownership as well, or digital scarcity. And Lens is bringing basically the elements that we do on a day-to-day basis on social into the on-chain. So, for example, in traditional social media, you might have the concept of followers within the platform. But what Lens is doing is it's taking those concepts such as followers, your profile, even your handle, and giving that ownership to you. So effectively, anyone can build a new application and reflect whatever you own in terms of your audience and your profile and identity. So in some ways, we own our assets on chain. At the same time, we can also own our identity and our profile and social networks that we create.
And you're constantly updating it. You launched V2 on mainnet earlier this month, was it? Congrats on that. And so there's a lot of cool features in it. Everybody should read up on it. But one in particular I wanted to mention was open actions.
Yes.
So you teased on Twitter that it enables cross-chain automations and transactions. So is that a step towards becoming multi-chain?
Yeah, it's more multi-chain, it's more multiplayer because effectively what you can do, you can create and integrate any action that you have on chain in different networks as well. So effectively, you can initiate a on-chain actions directly on your feed. And the reason it's very powerful is that some of you who grew up building social networks in different social platforms, Facebook or other platforms, quite frequently you saw a lot of interesting things on your feed. And that's where we spend most of our attention. And that's like a very interesting place to actually engage with on-chain users. So what open actions are doing, or what we call them as smart posts, it enables, for example, you to collect NFT on Optimism, for example, or vote directly on Optimism governance directly from your Lens feed. And I think that's really, really powerful because what happens in the front end, you don't really see anything else than maybe a button that is that open action, but behind the scenes you have actually a cross-chain action going. And the whole idea of open action is basically taking what Lens is today, which has been an experimentation for the past few years, building something even more serious and more scalable and taking it into multi-chain. And obviously that's why I'm here.
Yeah, and so that sounds like a different strategy than y'all took with Aave, where Aave launched fully on multiple chains pretty quickly, correct me if I'm wrong on that, whereas Lens has been on one chain for its existence so far. So what is different about those two protocols that led to that difference in strategy?
Yeah, Lens has been quite a lot about building this shared social graph, and it gets a lot of things we do. We take a lot of inspiration how, for example, Ethereum as a shared graph, shared network has been built. And in the beginning, we wanted to build a place where you can build a social media application and bootstrap your audience through an existing graph. So if you build something really, really cool, you can tap into the Lens ecosystem and make access to the Lens users that could benefit from your creativity and the experience that you're building. But at the same time, what we realized even more recently is that we have that shared graph, and it's very cool and amazing. But at the same time, developers, they want to create individual graphs, individual experiences, and have more control over the graph. So for us, we kind of follow the path that there's one graph, but then you have these multiple graphs coming, and it's more about giving choice to the developers and to the users itself that are using. And obviously, this is happening on the protocol level and the network level. But as we know, for the end users, like the main thing is to abstract everything away, networks away. Like people shouldn't know they're using Optimism. They shouldn't need to know that they're using Lens. Everything can be like working behind the scenes for every single user, and everything is abstracted away for a better experience.
Yeah, the moment somebody has to choose a chain, you've just lost such a huge chunk of users.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned abstracting all of that away, about being able to pool the user liquidity together in one place. We're really big into chains here and people having their own chains. So when you think about Lens having its own chain, what does that unlock for Lens? Like, what would that provide for you?
Yeah, I would say like, obviously scalability is one thing, but I have a very interesting view about scaling, because there are a lot of people always asking about like how Lens will scale on chain. It's a very frequent question, and I really don't think that that is a problem until it is. So what I'm saying about that, what I'm trying to say is that we first have to break a chain to know that we actually need scalability. And we don't really have really a social experience yet on chain that really could break a network completely. Yeah. And we don't know what to do. So that's where an interesting path forward is to have a dedicated Lens chain and getting that scalability. Another path is kind of the similar of the Aave protocol path, where we can deploy in multiple ecosystems and get more adoption and bring flexibility to the users. But what I think is that that point comes when we actually see something being built on Lens that will actually break that network. So when you're complaining on high gas fees on layer 2 because of Lens, then we're in the right direction. And I just think kind of like with Web3 social, we're still in a hello world moment. So if you look at all the applications that are built in Web3 social, regardless if they're Lens or something else, they're pretty much mimicking the existing experiences that we're used to, Twitter, Instagram, and even Twitch. So what I think is kind of like the next step is that how we go from here to actually building very, very new social experiences that are enabled by Web3 or powered, and also making it very transparent that how these developers and end users and whoever distributes content, for example, how they share monetization as well.
Yeah, and then you've also been sharing thoughts about the problems that Web3 is running into, especially at the community layer, and that you said the hardest problem in social media, spam and bots, probably won't be solved by money gating. And can you just elaborate on that? What is money gating? Why has that failed? And what can you bring to it?
To be honest, I really was in the position that, by just having some sort of a gas fee, you could avoid spam, but as you see in a lot of networks, you still have spam even if there's a gas fee. And if you look at the bigger social media platforms, most of my spam and most of the phishing attempts that are happening, for example, online, they have some sort of a verification badge, and it's more and more frequent. So basically, these bots are willing to spend some amount of money to actually, create this kind of content that is low signal for the user. So I think the money gating is something that isn't been working so far. But what I think is interesting about on-chain ecosystem is that it's a big chunk of verified data. And that means that, that data existed, there's a history, there's integrity, and most importantly, there's meritocracy. So there's some sort of events that happen on chain, whether they're real life. So for example, if you are going to Aave, if you have a ticket, for example, on a Thursday, and you're dancing on the dance floor, you also are claiming a Aave POAP. So that's a real life event where you're actually reflecting and saying, signaling on chain that you participated outside of the on-chain ecosystem, and that's a actual real life connection. But you have multiple events that are happening on chain ongoing basis, and I think that's a useful data to use and create algorithms and discovery that could actually work better than just setting a high cost to participate.
And the Aave mention is foreshadowing, so we'll circle back to that in one more moment. So last question on Lens. So on Twitter, you explained it in a way that is near and dear to my heart. You said Lens V1 is the PlayStation 1.
Yeah.
Lens V2 is the PlayStation 2. So what's the PlayStation 3 version? What's coming out in the next one?
I think PlayStation 3 will look more like a some sort of like a modularized. I could imagine it's kind of like more blocky that you can actually connect pieces together. But as a whole, it looks pretty nice. But it allows you to choose those components that you really want to and build experiences. So now when you integrate the Lens protocol, you usually kind of like integrate it as a whole. So you might be using, for example, profiles, you might be using handles, and tokenized content as well. But in the future, you can just use different kinds of primitives that you really need to. So most social media applications, they don't need necessarily content. Maybe they just need handles, or maybe they need profiles or profiles and handles, and maybe some new primitive that we come up with. So it just opens up the choice for developers to build more. So I guess it's going to be like, you know, PlayStation 2 with steroids and more modularity.
Hell yeah. And you mentioned you had something you want to share about Aave.
Yeah, so obviously there's not many Aave tickets, but we have one code specifically for the Optimism community. So it's called Ronnie Loves OP. So if you go and find where to put this code, you'll get a Aave ticket. There's not many, but there's few. Yeah, get your Aave ticket.
And so I think that does it for questions. Tony, are we bringing questions in from the audience, or how are we doing? A number. Thank you. All right. For Stani, Farcaster recently introduced a paid subscription to use the protocol. Will Lens also have something like this?
Paid subscription. Lens has primitives that are basically similar to paid subscriptions. You can follow, but individual modules that the community has been built. So we have, in Lens, you have a lot of monetization because it's an on-chain protocol. Effectively, you can make following to be paid. So for example, if I want to subscribe and follow you, you can charge the currency that you want to charge, basically. So that's already available. That's been already since the day one. There's a community module created where you can pay instances, which is kind of a more traditional subscription model. You know, if you are a developer, you can become very creative how you use, for example, the collects, monetization. And something I like about, and this is also a community idea that came, is that we introduced ability to split fees. So if you have collectible content or you're earning for followings, whether it's your profile or you created a community profile, you can share that revenue with your followers, and that's really, really cool. Plus, your followers can actually even vote on topics that you want to create, and you can create smart contract execution. So like, Lens Protocol goes very deeply what you can actually do as a developer. I think we're starting to see more and more use cases where developers are actually creating interesting functionality with the monetization. And there's roughly now 500,000 paid transactions that are paid collects. So in some ways, like, I think Mirror wrote about this a bit earlier, a couple of years ago, that collecting is kind of like the new like. So I wonder what will be the subscribe for Web3.
And we have an additional question to that effect for revenue opportunities. In addition to revenue opportunities for creators, but also for the social apps themselves, are there any other revenue opportunities to call out for the creators in the apps?
Yeah, and definitely. So what we introduced in the Lens V2 is this concept called collective revenue share. So it means that you can actually share any revenue with any profile. So it also means any application that has been built or algorithm that has been built on Lens. Just an example is that if you use one of the apps, so Lens Protocol doesn't have an app, we don't have a front end, so we're all for basically empowering the builders to build these experiences and giving all the support that they can have and help there. but you use one of these applications, like for example, Orb, you can create content there, make it collectible, and if it's collected in another application, let's say Butterfly, and there's like a third-party algorithm, there's an interesting project called Karma Tree Labs. They're basically just focusing on building Web3-based algorithms for discovery and so forth. So if all these three parties are together helping to find the content for the discovery and someone collects, they can share the revenue. And you can attribute revenue also, even people that inspire you in the Web3 space or elsewhere. So it's purely open design space how you can share. And it's on-chain, so that's the beauty. So once you hit that collect, transaction, like it's there. So no one can actually remove or add revenue.
And I have two more for you. So first, I like what is the difference between this thing and that thing question. What's the difference between a social network and a social graph?
Social graph is just like basically like this, right? So like, we're all connected somehow. So maybe like I'm probably connected, then we're all connected, one or two steps each other. So it's kind of like a degree of separation concept where everyone in the crypto space and everywhere knows between like I think it's like it used to be probably like six or seven degrees of separation, and it became 4. So we're all connected between 4 people today, and especially because we all interact online, soon on chain. It gets even narrower, the gap. Social network itself is also like discovery. Finding things what the graph is creating. So there are just concepts and primitives, and I think that's probably one answer.
And last one, what's the coolest open action you've seen so far?
The coolest open action, I know someone is focusing on creating an open action where, well, one cool open action which is very, very simple. It just it's not a cross-chain action, but you can actually create content and you can make it gated, token gated after certain character limits. So we're used to basically browsing and reading content, and you can actually monetize the full content. So we're taking kind of like a Web2 concept, like an internet concept, and bringing it to Web3, but using the monetization in a way where obviously you pay with, let's say, stable coins or whatever currency the creator chooses, but also you can split the monetization as well. So a lot of the beauty and the design goes in actually the ability to create integrity, how you share revenue. And I think that's really a lot about what blockchain also is. There's another interesting thing where I've seen where you can actually bet on results. I don't know who was building it, or was it like a pure like concept, but you can create a post and people can actually bet on that. It's kind of similar what is happening in TikTok Live, where you have 2 people broadcasting and then you can actually tip them. That's interesting. But cross-chain collect is very exciting as well. I'm very bullish on cross-chain transactions.
Hell yeah. I think that does it. Where can everybody learn more?
Obviously, you can follow me on Lens. I share a lot of content there. We have great documentation for Lens V2 if you want to build something. I'm looking now to help a lot of folks that are entering into the space, building Web3 social, helping a lot in the product aspect and the product design. So if you're building something interesting, I would love to talk to you and also like see the creativity that we can build.
Stani, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you all.